But some of the things that I want to say to you today may be repetitive in some ways. And in some ways they may be a new thought. And if I can leave you with one or two new thoughts, then perhaps I've done my job. This is a wonderful day for the children and families in King County because of you and the tremendous staff and those of you who reach out in numerous ways that you wouldn't even begin to capitalize because you're so involved in all the different facets of this organization and the community. Nancy and her staff are tremendous. God's vision years ago, all of these things have come together. And this is an amazing growth from a very short period of time, really. And what your future holds, I wouldn't even begin to understand. I think that you're going to have to find a different venue in another year or so, which is a good problem. A good problem. You know, in the South, we do a lot of fancy things. We have tea, we have china, and I have said to many folks over the years that people underestimate the power of a deviled egg plate. If you don't have one, and you're from the South, then you are working at a deficit. Many decisions have been made as a result of familiar cheese sandwiches and deviled eggs. There have been legislators who were brought to their knees over tea cakes and other beverages that I won't mention at this time. But I say to you that this is an outstanding event. I salute all of the captains, all the table captains for your creativity. And I thank all of you for coming because this is really what today is about as a celebration, because you are here in Astitia for all the babies, the 22,000 that probably would not fit in this venue. We would also have quite a bit of ruckus if 22,000 babies were in attendance at this moment. Now, many of you have volunteered, and from what I understand from talking with different ones of you, this is a very caring community. There are lots of opportunities for folks to volunteer. And obviously this has been one of the decisions you've made in order to give your time and your talents for this particular cause. Now, if used as a verb, volunteer is defined as freely offering to do something. Now, for years, I was told that at least 2/3 of the table captains have been repeat captains, some of you from the very beginning. Some of you are brand new to this occurrence, and I imagine you will continue after you've had such a day as today. You are giving of your time freely to help others in the most critical time in their development. And for this, I applaud you. If I had 2 hands, I would. As an army of volunteers, enjoy the day. Hold it close as a wonderful memory of a time the very best of you connected with the very best of someone else, and a miracle occurred. Now, my job today is to talk about your role in fighting poverty. So first of all, I have to define poverty. And this is from a rural gal, and as you can probably tell from my accent, I was not raised in this part of the country. I was raised in eastern Arkansas, and really along the highway. No community. We had a little post office, but that was just a building where people got their mail and had rural mail carriers. My daddy ran a country store for over 45 years. And every night before he left that store, he cleaned the floors with coal oil. It was that kind of store. He provided everything that you could probably think of in the context of Walmart today. He was one of the first Walmart-type businesses in this country. So I understand a little bit about poverty, even though I was not what I considered to be poor. I thought everybody in the United States took a bath on Saturday night in a tin tub. And I had no problems with going to the restroom in places that were not necessarily connected to my house when I visited my daddy's store only. I have recollections of hollyhocks and pump houses and cotton fields and those terrible planes that would fly over with all the pesticides that we would then run behind thinking that we were having fun. I thought we'd be here today. So I know a little bit about poverty. And poverty is a worthy adversary. It's going to take an army like one this country has never mounted to totally eradicate. Now, from my view, poverty is deceitful. It steals the hopes and the dreams of the very young and forces them into a compromised half-life status of surviving, but just barely. It is tenacious. It hangs on literally with a death grip to choke the life out of the young and the old. It creates oppression by luring children away from education with the promise of a quick buck, only to steal every opportunity for a productive life in the blink of an eye. Now, in this country, we define poverty as an annual income below $23,021 for a family of four. And that means that families live on less than $63 a day. More than 1 in 5 children in America, 16.1 million, was classified as poor in 2011. In Washington State, I've been reminded that I need to define this Washington. In Washington State, the percentage was 18.3 in 2011. And that translates to over 280,000 children. If the category of poverty is not bad enough, another category describing income levels below poverty is extreme poverty. In this category, the annual family income for a family of four is less than $11,511, or less than $32 a day. In 2011, 1/4 of all children under 5 in our country were living in poverty, and 1 in 8 children under 5 living in extreme poverty. So that means that nearly half of poor children under 5 were living in extreme poverty. As we move closer to the magic March 1st date where budget cuts are due to happen unless the new deal is brokered on how to reduce national spending without significantly cutting domestic programs, including children's programs, Washington, your Washington, is due to receive a funding cut that will eliminate 1,562 low-income children from receiving child care subsidies, and 952 children will be eliminated from Head Start programs. Now that we have a good description of the enemy, the forces of good. And so in saying that, I see all of you now with your capes on. And whatever suit you want to try to imagine that you would be in, I'll leave that up to you. And to millions across the country. One of the most significant strategies that WestSide Baby has developed is generational giving and volunteering. I have heard story after story of children of longtime supporters now becoming donor partners and volunteers. Now this is a testimony to the parents as well as the children who are reaching out to make a difference in the lives of babies and children that they may never come to know. So those of you who are under 21, now listen up. I'm talking to you. Volunteering is a learned behavior, and you are in training. As with any good soldier, you stay the course. And even if tempted to give up your post as a volunteer role model for others coming behind you, reinvent yourself. Keep giving and finding new ways to do so. All of us have made choices that have influenced where we are today, personally and professionally. We had choices, we had choices. Choices require decisions to be made which lead to other choices, and so on and so on. Babies and young children are the most dependent human beings on this earth. Almost everything that influences their development in the first months of life is in the hands of another person. Almost everything that influences certain health conditions in later life is influenced by another person. And as of today, you can add yourself as a someone who positively influences their lives in a remarkably profound yet basic way. According to the Huggies website, the cost of a diaper today is about 20 cents. Given the income levels of a family of 4, diaper costs can be the tipping point in many budgets of financially struggling parents. May can mention choices: food or diapers, diapers or gas to drive to work, medicine for a sick baby or diapers. The chances and the choices, rather, go on and on. The decisions have to be made, and there are no easy answers. It's my guess that everyone in this room over 21 can remember a time when someone extended a hand at a certain moment that proved to be pivotal in your future. I have many such memories. I had my first child at 17 in 1966. My then husband decided that he preferred college football to parenting, so he exited the picture. And with a very supportive family, I continued my education. And even though my resume didn't reflect this because I don't want to go back into ancient history, I was trained and became a laboratory technician, working for general practitioners in a very rural, small practice. And since it was a small practice many years ago in rural Arkansas, I was informally trained by them to serve as the nurse and the x-ray technician. So I was a 3-for-1. And for 2 years, I gladly went to work, satisfied I was where I should be at that time. I had always wanted to teach students since the 3rd grade, when my 3rd grade teacher accidentally burned her arm. And again, in a rural community, she was sent home and she chose 2 students to teach her class for her while she was off for 2 weeks. And I was one of those students. Now, the principal did have an arrangement that she would check on us periodically. But another young lady and myself filled in that role as the teacher. Believe it or not, our peers respected our new role of authority. Now, when I married so young and had a baby, I had to put that dream away. I was a lab technician. My son was also sick a great deal in the hospital a lot. And so it really did not look like I was going to be a teacher. And as I grew older, and at the ripe old age of 21, I determined if I was going to be a teacher, I better do it. Because if I didn't leave then, I would probably never leave. So against the advice of my employers, I quit. And with encouragement from my parents, I moved with my son 300 miles away to the University of Arkansas. It was very easy to make that decision as to where I would go to school because that was the only place that would allow a divorced woman with a child to live in married student housing. So we moved to Fayetteville. Now during the first few weeks at school, we both had to adjust to a new community and routine. I was lucky enough to have child care facilities on the campus, and he was enrolled. And at the end of the first week, the director pulled me aside and said, I don't know how to tell you this, but if he cries one more day, he can't come. So, we had Saturday and Sunday, and I guess I figured there was nothing I could say to him that would convince him one way or the other. I was just going to have to keep my fingers crossed that Monday would be a new day. And sure enough, Monday was a new day, and we got through with at least half of the day that he was not in tears. And so they said, okay, we can see there's progress. So as I made my way through that first semester, I was enrolled with 12 hours to take. And for someone who had majored in social activity in high school, it was a jolt. One of my first courses was a course required of all education majors, and that was in art. Now, I attended the first class, I looked at my list, I bought the supplies, even though I knew I could only draw a stick figure on a good day, but I knew I would take it. The day we would bring all of our supplies, and I do mean all of our supplies, there was a driving rainstorm. And I had to park at least a half mile from the building. There was no way to get there except to walk. And so I held things as tightly as I could to my body, and under the umbrella, we trudged forward. Now, in Fayetteville, Arkansas, it's a very hilly place. If any of you are familiar with that part of the world, it's in the Ozark Mountains. And there was the hill that you had to climb to get to the campus buildings. And as I trudged up the hill, the rain was just coming in on me. I practically threw the umbrella away because it was not serving me any purpose. The art materials were soaked, they were getting, by the minute, more and more destroyed. And so I thought, maybe this is just not to be. Now, in my lifetime, even early on in my life, I have been accused of trying to bite off more perhaps than I could chew. And I've also been told that if someone said to me, no, you can't, that was the exact thing to motivate me to do it. So under those two conditions, I had come to Fayetteville. But I was starting to question whether or not this was really going to work between the crying baby and the materials that were just starting to melt. All of a sudden, as I was trudging up the hill, a Volkswagen Beetle, some of you may remember that, pulled up alongside of me, and this voice came out of the driving rain and said, do you need a ride? And in the class. Now, I honestly could not tell you that woman's name today in my life to anybody. And she probably doesn't even remember that she had stopped and offered me a ride. But I can tell you with certainty, had she not stopped, I don't know that I would be standing here today. And I don't know that the life that I have had since that moment and my son's life would be the same. Now, she stopped and she took some time to help. And it probably wasn't significant to her, but it was a big deal to me. Now, we all have a role in this volunteer army of promise. In assessing your life today, conduct a time study of where and how you spend your time. As a parent of a young child or teenager, a great deal of it may be spent in a hands-on parenting role. If the chickens that left the nest or are about to take flight, time commitments shift, and other interests can move to the forefront. Taking care of aging parents or new grandchildren can take over for certain periods of time, or providing care for an ill spouse or adult child, or other possible situations that some of us are dealing with. Regardless of working in or out of the home, there are only 24 hours in everyone's day, and 24 hours it is. Personal decisions made for personal commitments. Whether you define yourself as a triple threat on this war on poverty, whether you're a donor, a volunteer for sorting and packing baby item bundles and serving on a committee or board, or perhaps you're a specially trained volunteer who can out-bundle the best of them, or a well-versed donor who can call others requesting their financial commitment, there is a spot for you and for your talent. This enemy requires of us giving the best we have to defeat it. Nothing energizes people more than success. And in WestSide Baby, you have a story of success. With close to 100 service partners, they were able to reach 22,000 children in 2012. This is an increase in the number of children from the year before. Now, we've mentioned staff, we've mentioned volunteers, and I certainly want to mention the service partners. Because service partners are the frontline providers who make the contacts and actually get to experience the expressions of thanks and appreciation from the families and in some cases the children. Now, many may consider WestSide Baby as an organization that performs acts of charity. And in many regards it is. But it is also promoting economic development in the most insightful and American way I can imagine. Keeping the family employed by providing essentials for their youngest is a win-win for the family as well as the community. Never let anyone say that WestSide Baby is one of those soft, feel-good, woman-type organizations. It is a tough, economic-minded group of individuals who know what drives small and large business in this community, working families. Enjoy the day and hug each other. Another year of growth and another year of challenges are ahead, but your army is strong and growing every year. Again, I thank you for the privilege of being with you today and sharing this celebration with each and every one of you. Thank you.